racers are raring to go and eager to impress.
Okay.
I'm assuming that most who buy into Grid Legends VR for the Quest 2 and the Quest Pro will already have some idea as to what the game is about, but for the sake of covering all bases, here's the back of a napkin description. Grid Legends is a racer that's a blend of simulation and arcade. It's not as unforgiving as Gran Turismo, but it's nowhere near as arcadey as Ridge Racer. Think Forza Horizon but without the cringe voice acting. It's a great game for racing fans who want to swing one way or the other, with the game's options allowing players to tailor the experience to their playstyle, without committing too far to one ideal. The original game was a fantastic experience with a well-structured career mode and a surprisingly decent story mode, all backed up with an online multiplayer suite to keep ardent racers busy for months on end. Grid Legends VR is essentially the exact same game. You get every feature found in the original, which is impressive, but this also goes some way to inflating the game's install size to a whopping 31 gigabytes. The problem with Grid Legends VR is that it just doesn't feel like a VR experience. Fair play to the developer for cramming in the entire game, but it's definitely come at a price, and the cost is ultimately paid by the end user with an experience that does not match the price tag. Booting into Grid Legends VR for the first time, you're thrown straight into the story mode, exactly as in the original non-VR version, and it was here that I let out my first sigh of disappointment. As my car moved into position and the controls were handed over to me, I reached my hands up instinctively to take hold of the wheel, only to find that I had no presence in the game. Sure, I could look around the inside of the car and watch my virtual feet tap the pedals as I pressed the touch controller triggers, but my in-game arms and hands were firmly set in place, with my input being the left stick on the touch controller. Is it too much to ask for the most basic of motion controls in a VR game? I was reminded of Drive Club VR for the PSVR and how it used the DualShock 4's motion controls to great effect. A necessity due to the lack of decent input methods for Sony's debut headset. But this isn't the first Quest headset, and it isn't hampered by little sticks with balls of light on the end. This is a premium bit of kit with more tech packed inside it than the PSVR, so what gives? The disappointment doesn't stop at the controls, sadly. The presentation is also, and this is my PG edition of my actual thoughts, crap. The resolution is super low, meaning it's difficult to make out any details, fine or otherwise, beyond the bare bones cockpit. The insides of vehicles look decent enough, but I'm not spending my time admiring the upholstery when I'm blitzing down the straight stretch at 150 miles an hour. I want to clearly see the upcoming turn and where the other racers are on the track. On a few occasions, I smashed head-on into another car, not because of my own idiocy, but because the other car had spun out up the way, and because of the miserably low resolution, I genuinely couldn't tell that the vehicle was sideways until it was too late. Pair the low resolution with the low level of detail, and you've got a game that looks more at home on a PS1 than a 2023 VR headset. Cars will visibly transform from Lego bricks on wheels as you approach them, and their detail level loads in. It makes for a poor experience that takes the player out of the moment, though I would argue that in my case at least, I never really felt like I was ever in the moment. I'll go back to Drive Club VR for a moment. When I first played that game, I puked my guts up into my lap, laughed at the ridiculousness of the situation, and then carried on because it was brilliant and messy fun. Even now, my brain and my belly have a duel to the death whenever I dip in for a Sunday drive through the snowy mountains of Norway. That might sound like fresh hell to some, but to me it means that the VR is working. My brain thinks I'm away on a driving holiday, but my body knows I'm sitting on my couch. I never had this kind of disconnect with Grid Legends VR, and that's not because it does it better, but because it does it worse. My brain and my body saw the situation, realised that they were both being duped, and then agreed to a ceasefire. Meanwhile, I was sat glumly in my office chair, hands hanging down at my sides, wondering if it's too late to refund my purchase. Grid Legends is a great game. Grid Legends VR for the MetaQuest is not. I'm impressed that Codemasters managed to cram a full console racing game into a mobile VR headset, but the compromises required to do so are too many. For racing fans waiting for a decent native Quest racer, this is not the one. And that is the end of this review. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful and informative. If you did, go on down below, hit the like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already done so, and give the bell icon a nudge so that you get notified whenever we've got new stuff. I've been Chris, you've been gorgeous, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, cheers my dears.